Hello. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Hello, hello. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We're back. We're back, we're back, we're back. Oh, there you are. I know, I'm just gonna keep hitting refresh. Or keep typing refresh. Everything is super normal, don't worry about it. Yeah. I think probably what we should do is make like the vlog or like the stream covers like incredibly different from our vlog ones, because I feel like we get a lot of folks being like it's hard to watch the vlogs when they're in like a sea of old streams. Oh yes, I'll pay you to be less homophobic in the future. What's also so strange about when OBS goes down and comes back is it goes back and forth from saying we have like 200 viewers to like 3 viewers. And now it says our bitrate, it doesn't exist. A second channel is a lot of work. The other thing is like I thought that nobody was watching the the streams at all on YouTube, and people do. They get an average of like between 3 and 500 streams or watches or whatever. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not making 2 separate.
No. No, but I do think we could figure out a way to have them have like a different look for their cover photos.
No, I can definitely do that.
Someone asked about me in the comments and I felt like a celebrity. You are a celebrity. They're in a playlist. They are in a playlist. The problem right now is that the playlists are there's like a different stream playlists from when we first started doing it. And we should combine them into one that's just streams. And then one that's just vlogs. And then one that's just about like TTC content. But it is doing better. I mean, we have, more subscribers than we did a few months ago. I've not read Song of Achilles. Oh, anyway, yeah, back to the Hunger Games. It was good. I am excited to read the third one. I don't remember much of what happens. But it must be, I think it's like 400 pages on my Kindle, which is crazy because it's 2 movies. And I feel like 400 pages is not that many pages. Song of Achilles, everyone says, is so sad. I don't want to be sad. The Goosebumps books, that's so cute. Interesting. Listen, if you're trying to get back into reading, what I saw someone say once was that if you reread something you really liked as a young person, it might help. That's not great advice for me because I actually had terrible taste. If you're rewatching, probably YouTube, because like that's where we make the most money. We don't make any money on rewatches on Twitch.
I think we do.
Unless
it's like very.
Yeah, unless there's ads in it. It's about Mockingjay's sad level. I really like Bestery. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like once I read a really good book, I get back into the flow of reading. Exactly. Okay, I'm gonna snooze this. The only books I was really into as a young person was Twilight. And I know I read other books. I definitely did. Couldn't tell you hardly any of them. Every time I need to get back into reading, I reread Twilight, and it works every time. Listen, I just know what happens too well. Midnight Sun is literally 800 pages of angst. And I eat it up. I love it. I love that man. He needs therapy, but I think I could fix him. Why is he so handsome? He has so many feelings. Can you imagine being 17 forever? I was one of the worst versions of me at 17. Listen, that's fair, Echo. It's not for everyone. I can make him worse. Okay, I haven't read Thursday Murder Club. The friend that I have who has, like, normally very similar taste to me really didn't like it. And so now I'm nervous. And she's like, no, he was not fun to write. That's the thing. People are like, I want all 4 books from Edward's perspective. And do I want that? Like, kind of yes. But also, like, can you imagine? Just try and imagine New Moon from Edward's perspective. If you thought Midnight Sun was way too fucking sad, come on. That would be way too sad.
1,200 pages of whining.
It would be 1,200 pages of whining, exactly. Way too many. New Moon should be Jacob's POV. No, because I feel like he's even whinier. An Alice backstory, I would read that. There's rumors that the new books are going to be about Jacob and Renesmee. I don't know if that's confirmed, though. It's like new. I know they were working on a Twilight show before the strikes. Stephanie Meyer announces 2 more Twilight books. This is in February. The details aren't there yet. The author mentioned having an outline and 1 chapter written. But she'd like to explore new territory. I want to do something brand new. I also want Rose and Emmett being hot and fun together. Yes. I think she talked about if she does sequels, it'll be Jacob and Renesmee. No one cares about them, though. Yeah, what I want is... Or, like, if we got, like, more on, like, their, like, Alaska, like, family... Or if we got, like, more of... You know that guy who, at the very end of Breaking Dawn... No. The very end of Eclipse? No, that literally can't be right. The end of Breaking Dawn. He comes out and he's like, my mother was a human, my father was a vampire. Like, I want his story. I want to know more about him. It's icy outside. And he's wearing, like, basically just a little loincloth. And he has, like, all these abs. And he's like, yeah, I'm 140. What of it? My guy. I just finished watching them for the first time. I got about halfway through Midnight Sun. And then I stopped reading. Mostly because I, like, got too busy. It was when I was working at Disney World. Yeah, I don't want to know more about Jacob and Renesmee. I don't want to. It was weird then. It's even weirder now. To double down. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really cute. In Midnight Sun, you hear a lot about Edward before there's anyone else in the family. So you hear a lot about him and Carlisle being, like, alone and being their own family, and that's it. And it's really cute. I'm also going to say, I read the other 2 things that I read recently. Let's do... I don't think anyone cares if there's spoilers for this, but I'll do it anyway. I'll do the... No, it's Where Do You Go? Bernadette. Perfect time for an ad. This is a book that takes place in Seattle, which is why I read it, because I needed a Pacific Northwest read. All right, we're switching books. We're switching books to Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Because I have a lot of thoughts. This one also had a movie, so you might have seen the movie. It's actually not a horror book. It's funny. It's supposed to be a funny book. It's one that like a lot of like white moms read in like 2015. I just want to rag on Seattle. Breaking Dawn 1. They're so good. Breaking Dawn Part 1 is really horny. It's also her, like, there's so many things wrong with Bella and Edward's relationship, right? We all know that as grown adults. We can say that. We can know that. That's fine. What is fun is to know as an adult that you shouldn't have a relationship like Bella and Edward's. He is, like, really controlling and, like, kind of gaslighty, right? And, like, there's a lot of problems. However, I'm an adult, and I know those things, so I'm gonna enjoy them. I'll be like, no, it's because he loves her. And that's the reality I live in when I consume the content. And so for him to be like, we can't have sex, I'll break you. And she's like, no, do it. I eat it up. I love it. I'm like, she's literally not like other girls. And he's not like other boys. He's dead. He's worse. Edward is the creepiest, and yet I love him. I was like, this is love. I need someone to be so obsessed with me that they tell me that I can't hang out with my friend who's a werewolf. He's not like other boys. He's effervescent. He is. I love him. What a weird little guy. When she cries because her horny dream wasn't real. That's so true. I love him. He is so mopey. What a sad little fella. I love him. Okay. Where'd you go, Bernadette? It is not, it's not horror at all. I'm so sorry. They made a movie about it. Cate Blanchett is in it. I saw the trailer for the movie forever ago. I thought this was a movie, or I thought this was a book about like a mom who goes on her own like eat, pray, love journey and didn't tell anyone. And so the whole book I thought was going to be like people trying to figure out like where she went, and then also getting perspective of her being like, I'm in this random country eating foods I've never had before and talking with strangers and like understanding the meaning of life. So like that's not what this is about at all. It's a little bit like that, I guess, the tiniest bit. I'm going to read the synopsis. Is everyone ready? Bernadette Fox has vanished. When her daughter Bee claims a family trip to Antarctica as a reward for perfect grades, Bernadette, a fiercely intelligent shut-in, throws herself into preparations for the trip. But worn down by years of trying to live the Seattle life she never wanted, Miss Fox is on the brink of a meltdown. And after a school fundraiser goes disastrously awry at her hands, she disappears, leaving her family to pick up the pieces, which is exactly what Bee does. Weaving together an elaborate web of emails, invoices, and school memos that reveals a secret past Bernadette has been hiding for decades. Where'd You Go, Bernadette is an ingenious and unabashedly entertaining novel about a family coming to terms with who they are and the power of a daughter's love for her mother. Wrong. Not what happens, in my opinion. I gave it 3 stars. Okay, I have a lot of problems with it. Number 1, I would like to say... Actually, no, I'll start with the good things. Number 1, I really like the way that it's, like, written. It is written by, like, it's not just, like, a book that you read. It's, like, you are reading these, like, memos and then emails and then letters. And, like, that is how the whole thing is told. Huge part of it is that Bernadette used to be this, like, really famous architect. And really famous is very loose because she only did, like, 2 big projects. And then one of them ended very badly, and so she went into like hiding for 20 years essentially. She like hardly leaves her house. She had this daughter who goes to this like incredibly expensive private school, and her husband works at Microsoft, which is I guess in Seattle, and she hates Seattle. She talks so much about how she hates Seattle, and that's fine. I don't need you. Like lots of people hate where they had to move, right? It's so much of it. Okay, and then the other part of it that I just didn't think I would have to look at content warnings for is like there's a very heavy like infertility theme, but only for like one chapter where she had like 4 miscarriages, and then she finally had her daughter B, and she was born with like this heart defect. And so like that's why she's so like afraid to let like that's why she's like so protective of B, I guess. But she's not really. She's like protective of herself. She never wants to go anywhere. But like B is allowed to like go to this expensive school, and like she goes and hangs out with her friend who lives in like the other half of Seattle. And like it's weird. Then she also says in the book that like the architecture design that she did years and years ago that was destroyed by this man who was like jealous of her and rude and all this other stuff, like she said that was more painful than her 4 miscarriages. And I was like, okay, so I'm very curious if the author has ever gone through a pregnancy loss, because I'm sure they haven't. Number one, right. And then the other thing about it is I feel like most of the book is not at all, I didn't even, like, the mom doesn't disappear in, like, what you're learning until 75% through. The answer is 100% no. Yeah. So, I was like, okay, so it's not really about her leaving. Most of the book, I would say, is about her like feud with her like neighbor, and then like in the end it's like the neighbor who helps her like escape. And also the reason she's like escaping is because her husband is like mad at her because she hired this like online virtual assistant who ended up being like a scam artist, and the FBI is like investigating this scam artist. I took the title to mean more about her disappearance from the public eye. That's true, I guess maybe. And then like it ends with her, like Bernadette is in Antarctica where the daughter wanted to go anyway, and she like basically got off of a cruise ship and started living in this place that only has like 15 people living there, who are all like scientists. And then also it's a lot of talk of the daughter and the mother having this like bond that no one else gets. And so like everyone's like, you know, I'm sorry, B, I know you love your mom, but like she's gone. She probably fell off the ship. Like, I'm sorry. And B's like, no, like I would feel if she was dead. Like, this is different. Da 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 da. And I just don't love that as a premise. As someone who is a parent who is a narcissist, who spent a lot of their life being like, you and I have a bond that other people don't get, but it was really a bond of like control. I was like, you know, I don't love it personally, especially after the mom at a different point in the book said to someone like, I loved this building I built more than I ever loved any of my unborn children. So feels like this is mirroring a rocky mom and daughter relationship when the mother does something awful. I think the other thing is like what the mom has done that's like awful is like she is kind of a bad neighbor. She's not neighborly, but she's not like destroying other people's property on purpose or like leaving snotty calls. She just literally ignores her neighbors. And the neighbor is like that's rude. And so then the neighbor ends up like starting this chain of events that end with the neighbor's yard getting destroyed, but only because she asked for Bernadette and her family to do this thing. When, like, if she had just left it alone and been like, I guess my neighbor's kind of rude, and just ignored her, like, everything would have been fine. Actually, none of this would have happened. Yeah, it wasn't very good. I also just kept being like, okay, so, but the reason it has 3 stars is I did really like the way that it was written. It's like found footage, but as a book. I thought that was really interesting. I also feel like B should be mad at her mother for leaving. Yes. Right. And she's not. Believe it or not, the movie is worse. I can't wait to watch it. You and I have a bond like no other because I formulated it in a way that would ensure lifelong control over you. It's so special. Ding, ding, ding. And I don't think that's what the author intended, to be clear. But it makes me suspicious. Because I hate it. Thanks, I hate it. Yeah. It's also like this woman, Bernadette's like husband cheats on her like one time and gets some other girl pregnant, and they just like never go back to it. Like the book ends, and they're like, and now we're gonna live as a happy family. And I'm like, okay, but what about the random woman that's pregnant with your husband's child? I don't like that they don't make her mom they don't make anyone take blame for anything. That's a pretty big deal. Right. They just don't come back to it at the end. It's like the dad is like super fucking rich, and so he's like, I'm going to pay for this woman to have like a nice house, and I'm going to pay child support. But like that's it. Like we don't know if Bernadette ever finds out that her husband got some random woman pregnant. She's not random. She's like his assistant. But all of the characters have so much privilege. It's literally cuckoo bananas. There's like a whole bit where the daughter goes to this like boarding school that's super fucking expensive. And they're like, you're so smart. We think you should skip a grade. And then they send her back because they're like, she's like really depressed. She's really bumming her roommate out. So we have to send her back to you. Sorry. And I was like, okay. I've never seen Gilmore Girls. I know how the theme song goes because it comes up, especially during the fall, on my TikTok a lot. Hey, Bernadette, your behavior actually impacts the people around you. Hope this helps. Yes, Pinles, exactly. Not only is he mad at her, the FBI is mad at her for hiring this virtual assistant who's a scam artist. And I was like, she doesn't have any friends, and she really doesn't have any therapy. And not that makes it okay to like give your banking account information to a stranger via email. But like Bernadette's not the one who committed a crime. These scam artists are the ones who committed a crime by tricking her. So like why is the FBI mad at her? To agent@fbi.com, are you mad at me? Literally My Chemical Tragic. Also, like, she wasn't crying. She was just, like, when she wasn't at class, she was, like, in their dorm room on her computer compiling this book. So, like, in the story, the book you're reading is, like, all of the stuff that the daughter compiled to be, like, trying to find out where her mom is. Maybe if you weren't impregnating another woman, she wouldn't have to find her friends online. It's just so much. The dad's also, like, not really involved in his kid's life at all. And I think, like, at the end, when the dad and the daughter go to, like, find Bernadette in Antarctica, it's supposed to be, like, them reconnecting. But it's not at all. It's the daughter being like, Mom and I hang out all the time and you're never home and you don't get it. And the dad being like, sorry, I just, like, have to work. I'm building a robot for Microsoft. It's really hard work. And I know it's hard work to build a robot. I'd like to be clear. But, like, you know, I don't know. Literally, the dad's like, I'm sorry, I really miss her, but she's definitely dead. And it's been like 3 weeks of her missing. And I was like, is she like, don't get me wrong, like, I think we've all seen any episode of any cop show where they're like, after 48 hours, the chances of finding someone are really low, or whatever, you know what I mean? But, like, it seems bold to tell your, like, 13 or 14-year-old, like, well, she's definitely dead. Time to move on. Shall we move in with my assistant who's having my baby? That seems like a good call. You should go to the same school as her son. He's your age. And then it's like, okay. I mean, they probably don't pen Les, but, like, it was weird. It's a weird book. It was just weird. I gave it 3 stars, mostly because I would say the stars came from I like the way it was written, and I truly had no idea where it was going. And the reason I had no idea is because I thought some of the things that happened might get resolved, which was, I guess, foolish of me. Hello, welcome. You can have a job and still be around. It's actually very possible. Yeah, it was a weird one. It was weird. At my dad, hey. Can't believe this. I haven't read Mexican Gothic. I have it. It's on my bookshelf right now. I haven't read it yet. I know it'll be good. Everybody loves it. Although I will say, speaking of books that everybody loves and says that I should read, shall we move to The Only Good Indians? Because I have some thoughts. I would also like to be clear, in case you didn't know, this is a horror book literally written by an Indigenous person. So that is why not to jump scare you with the title, but he picked it, not me. I just finished this book. Perfect. Everybody really likes Mexican Gothic. I have not read it. I was already going to have some thoughts based on the title. Right, no. It is an Indigenous writer. I am going to spoil things. This is probably one. Let me do one of the, like, pinned. Oh, my so god. I can't spell. Oh my god, okay. La 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 la. Nice. Okay. If you need to mute, I'm about to read the synopsis of this book. And then I will also tell you things that happen in it directly. See, I'm autistic in the way that I don't care if things are spoiled for me. I love that for you. I just read it. Hello. Welcome. It's written by Stephen Graham Jones, who, again, based on, like, Googling and also everything that everyone's saying, like, he is Indigenous. Very relevant, obviously. It is a very short synopsis. It says, this book follows 4 American Indian men after a disturbing event from their youth puts them in a desperate struggle for their lives. Tracked by an entity bent on revenge, these childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions they left behind catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. Lots of thoughts here. Oh, here, let me put... Can I add it in? Sure can. I already have this one. Here's the... Nice. This is the cover. So number 1. I feel like my expectations were too high because everyone was like, you have to read this. It's so good. Like, it's so scary. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh my god, hang on, I have to stretch. Which is just like, I wish I could not have expectations for anything. Because I feel like that's a huge part of the problem, number one, is when, like, something gets recommended by several people, then I'm like, okay. Do you think it's one that non-horror readers dipped into and said, whoa, scary? I think that's it. I think, number one, that's part of it, is that people don't know that, like, I am reading horror with, like, a capital H. You know what I mean? There is a lot of gore, is the other thing. And I, personally, have the opinion that, like, gore is not horror. Unless it's, like, sudden and jarring. And even then, like, there's a reason that, like, for some people, for, like, anyway, like, going to the hospital isn't going to see a horror movie. Gore is cheap. Yeah. Like, I don't know, and I don't care about gore. I'm not saying I don't want to see it or I don't like it necessarily, but it's not the same as, like, horror. Especially in a written format, gore can't portray fear to me in the same way as in, like, a movie. Yes. It can be scary, but it's not horror on its own. Right. So, this is it's gory. Definitely. Lots of, like, animal death. Pretty descriptive about it. So it starts by you hearing about, I don't remember anyone's name. I'm just going to name them A, B, C, and D. Because I don't remember. They're all, like, to be clear, like, normal. I'm not saying it because they're, like, names that are hard to say. They're all, like, Steven and, like John and, like, they're normal, like, American, sorry, I don't know how to best say this, I guess. They're just, like, all the names are the same type of name to me. But so, anyway, person A, they're also all indigenous, all from the same, like, reservation. Matthew, James, Luke, and John. That's how it feels to me. I was like, these names are too similar. That's also my biggest complaint with The Girl on the Train, but that's a whole nother thing. So person A, you literally only get one chapter of this. It's the very beginning. And I think what they're trying to do is, like, I think what he's trying to do is, like, the same effect that, like, Stephen King does at the beginning of It, the book, where it's, like, they do this one scene of these, like, two boys being, like, beat up and assaulted, and then, like, Pennywise finds them. And then you're like, so whatever happened to them earlier wasn't even the worst thing that happened, because Pennywise is going to kill them. And then you just never hear about those boys again, really? Like, you do in, like, passing, but, like, not... Very hard to remember who everyone is, especially at first. Yes. It's just hard for me. Like, what I need, if there's going to be, like, 4 male main characters, is they need to have vastly different names. So I need one to be, like, a Mike. That's fine. I need another one to be, like, Jamie or Stacy. One of those, like, little, like, unisex girly pop names. I need another one to be, like, Moss. And, haha, exactly, Echo. Don't read it. And I need another one to be, like, a name of someone I know in real life. So that I can keep them separate. And otherwise, when everyone has a name like Steven, John, Rick, you know? Yeah, or a snappy nickname. In Girl on the Train, the main characters are, hang on, Anna, Rachel, what's the last one's name? It can't be Hannah. Anna, Rachel, Megan. Those are all the same name. Yes, exactly. Just that's what I'm saying is you could if it's something that you could skip that whole chapter and the story would basically be the same, then I don't feel like it was really all that necessary. Instead they go with James, Jack, John, and Joe. Yes. Why did they do this to me? And in this boy's specific case, like maybe they're based on real people that he knows, like, and maybe the same with Girl on the Train. Like maybe that's where they're getting the names from. I don't know. But that was my first problem, was that I couldn't keep everybody straight because their names were like Steve and Rick and yeah. So anyway, person A, he doesn't live on the reservation anymore. He's like visiting some town, and then like at the town, like he walks out of this bar and he's like the only not white person there. And he's like, I can tell people are looking at me, which is relevant, obviously. He's all stressed out. He doesn't want to wait in line for the bathroom inside. So he's like, I'm going to go outside and pee, and then I'll probably just leave. So he goes outside and he pees. And then he like turns and there's this elk like staring at him way too hard. And then it's not just one, it's like a bunch of different elk all staring at him. And then they like are chasing him in this parking lot, and as the elk are chasing him, they're like destroying the trucks of like all the white men who are inside this bar. So then the white men in the bar like see him and think that he destroyed the trucks, and then they like start chasing him, and they chase him like far away from the bar, and then like the men stop chasing him but the elk don't, and then presumably the elk like kill him, like trample him to death. So it starts off and I was like, okay, like very interested. And I would like to say I don't think this book is bad. I think my expectations were too high. Moving on. Person B, who's like our main guy. He also doesn't live on the reservation anymore. He's a mailman, which is kind of cute. He lives with his fiance, and she's white. And he does make a lot of jokes about how like people from his hometown will be like, can't believe like you left and married like a Bethany, you know what I mean? And I was like, I can't relate, but that's kind of funny, like, you know. He like keeps getting these visions, like keeps seeing in the distance like an elk that is an elk that he killed when he was like a kid. And basically like what happened is him and his 3 friends like killed this elk that was like really young, and like they shouldn't have shot because of like the place that they were at. Like they weren't allowed to hunt there. It was like for elders, I guess. And it's like really like a big moment in his life because he remembers like the fear in her eyes, and also she was pregnant, and he like felt so bad for killing her, and like it was like very memorable to him. But I'd like to be clear that he kills this elk and they kill 8 other ones, like in this hunt that they're on. So like I'm personally just really confused why like this one, it must be, and like maybe that's the other thing is I don't know enough about the life cycle of an elk that I feel like it would look so different or feel so different to kill one that like was technically too young for you to kill. Because, like, when you're shooting something, you're, like, far from it, right? So how could you really tell? But he's been carrying a lot of guilt about it for, like, 10 years. That makes sense, Wednesday. The elkening. So it was, like, the way that he says it is, like, it was surprising that this one was pregnant because she was, like, too young to be pregnant. And then I was like, okay. And again, like, I don't know enough about, and I don't know how he knew, except until, like, it's very descriptive. I won't get into all that. But you can tell that she is pregnant, and then he, like, the baby can't keep growing, right? Because the mom's dead. So that part's really descriptive. But they don't really talk at all about the other 8 that they killed, who I guess don't decide to, like, haunt him for 10 years. So anyway, this person B, our like main guy, has spent like a lot of guilt I spent the last 10 years carrying a lot of guilt for this. And I personally was like, I feel like the guilt is bad enough. Because he feels like so bad. And I obviously did not grow up like on a reservation or anything like that. But I still feel like he really explained like that part of it really well, about how he was like, it was disrespectful, and also like they were already breaking a rule by being on like land that like people that young weren't supposed to be hunting on anyway. And it was like the last day of the hunting season and all this stuff. And I was like, this poor guy is like 24, and he like lives in like a biggish city now, away from like his hometown and like the place where he grew up. And he's still like really the other 8 were bucks, I think. The other 8 were too busy to hunt, I guess. Like the reservation, yeah. Like I felt really bad for him. He was the only one that I like really cared about. So anyway, you go through the rest of the book and you basically find out that the elk of the person, the elk of the young elk that he killed, the like spirit of it has like taken 10 years to like come to life, and then can like possess people. So like crazy, maybe the 8 were less affected, I don't know. And again, like I think part of it is just that like maybe this book, like I'm not the intended audience, which isn't a crime at all. But I was like, I don't know, I feel like there were questions that didn't get answered. And then my other like thing is that I feel like typically in a horror book, I wonder if there's a folklore reference we're not getting. Yeah, I think that there's a lot that I'm not getting, which is, again, not a problem and not a crime and not wrong or bad. They have spiritual practices that they don't have females, I think. Oh. My other complaint is like too harsh of a word. But like I feel like typically in a horror book, it'll be like this person saying, I finally make it into my apartment. I shut the door. My heart is so quick, like beating so fast, and there's sweat dripping down my face. But at least I'm home. At least I've shut the door is locked. And then I hear a noise from the kitchen. And I slowly turn. I can only see the eyes glowing. But I know that as soon as I turn on the light, something will... You know what I mean? Like there's like suspense. This does not have that. Which is also like scary in its own way for sure. But like it would be like, I don't want to give away, like it's really gory, so I won't get into that, but it'll be like 2 people talking, and then all of a sudden one of them is like sliced in half, and there's no build up, there's no nothing. It's just happening to the point where I'm like, did I misread this? Did it really happen? They're eating her. They're going to eat me. Literally jump scares. Dogs and people gone in mere sentences. Yes. And so I was like, there was a lot of me like rereading passages in this one, because I was like, did that really happen? And maybe it's just that I need to be baby spoon fed. But I was like, it was a lot of me being like, hang on, I must have missed something. Yeah. It was a really interesting, like, way for them to do it. Because I was like, that's so much. Anyway, so then the rest of the book is like a lot of horrible things happen to person B, and like people that he cares about. Very, very, very descriptive animal death. Incredibly descriptive. He is like, I am going to go back to the reservation, and I'm going to like honor. He has like one last piece that's been like frozen from this elk. Because he was like, I want to use like every piece of her, like make gloves out of her, and which I've never done any of those things. So I don't know if you can even do that with a 10-year-old frozen piece of meat. But he's like, I'm going to take it back to the reservation, and I'm going to, like, do something that, like, I'm not a part of the culture with it. I'm going to give this a shot. Yeah. Which, to be fair, what else is he going to do? You know what I mean? Like, he's got to. He can't stay where he is. That's for sure. So then he's going to apologize. He also, like, there's a lot that goes into, like, what he did originally with the meat. Again, very descriptive. But anyway, so he's got this, like, last piece, and yeah, he's gonna try and, like, make things right, essentially. Oh, I'm gonna read the book. Please do. Anyway, and then he also dies. So then we go to person C and person D, who together, are kind of like our next main characters. I really liked them a lot. They have a lot of like banter that I think is really fun. I feel like give you like the last missing like kind of puzzle pieces, which is obviously like I guess the intention. But they also die like within sentences. Like you kind of get to know them. I finally am like, okay, like I care about these boys like a little bit, and then they're dead. And then I guess my only confusion, or wait, one of them must not die because we keep following his perspective. So one of them dies, and then there's some other people who die. And again, so descriptive, so fast when people die in this book. Very, very, very gory. Anyway, so we get to like the end, and then essentially like our last boy figures out that like it's like the spirit of this young elk that has been like haunting them. And so they go to this like area in the forest where he can still like see her, like the place where everything originally went down. And he like apologizes, and she, I think if I remember right, like gets it, and like everyone moves on. Anyway, I feel like I just don't understand how it happened is my number one question. Because I feel like with other horror books, it's like, oh, it was like a demon, or like, oh, it was like, you know, it's chill, dude, I'm not bringing your friends back, though. And it wasn't super chill. She was obviously very angry. But it was like, also, like, the one who lives isn't the one who killed her. Because that was person B. But, like, it was... I just feel like I don't understand how it even came into being. Like how I would recognize a vampire myth. Oh, I bet you're right, Pinlas. That's much deeper than what I was thinking. Not deeper as in like, that's so deep, but like, that's a much better explanation. Is that true, Echo? Like, that's what I'm saying. Was she actually like special from the get-go? Or is it that like he committed such a crime that like this being was like born out of that? Or is it like, I guess that's my question. Is it based on existing like stories that I just wouldn't know as a white person? Or is it like him creating something? Are probably sacred. But are some of them more sacred than others? This sounds a little like The Wolves in Princess Mononoke, but obviously in like a more relevant way. See, I haven't seen Princess Mononoke. We started it and I got too scared because of the little like the little folks with like the holes for eyes. I'm indigenous, but the wrong indigenous to explain this. No, that's fair. That's more than I have. Oh, my other beef with this book is I expected there to be like words I didn't like know and had to Google because like I'm not indigenous, right? That wasn't even the problem. There was so much like words that maybe like motorcycle men knew, but like 4 separate times. I feel like typically like when you're figuring out context clues, it'll be someone being like, oh, did you want to buy, oh, do I still owe you for the smorgy dork? And the other person will be like, oh, actually, since you bought half of the fries, then you don't owe me for the smorgy dork. And I'll be like, oh, okay, must be some sort of food. This did not have that. And it was almost always something to do with motorcycles. Because he rides motorcycles and so do some of the other people in the book. But I would be like, I would read it and I'd be like, there's no way this has to do with motorcycles. This must have to do with, like, animals. It didn't. It was almost always motorcycles. Smorgy dork is a vital part of a motorcycle. Well, the only one that I really remember was hard bags. And, like, what everyone is talking about is, like, their job as being mailmen. And then someone's like, oh, yeah, did you bring the hard bags? So I'm thinking maybe that's what they call the bags that, like, old school mailmen have, where they're, like, they walk instead of having a mail truck. No. It's the bags on the side. Or a bag for hard things. It's not. It's the bags that are, like, on the side of the motorcycle, which I guess you can take off and switch out, which I had no idea. I ride motorcycles. I feel like people don't really talk like that. Like a saddlebag. And, like, some of the other ones I knew, like, you know, the things that sound like car parts, I was like, that makes sense. But, like, there was another word that they used that essentially meant, like, someone used to ride with, like, a motorcycle gang, or, like, I don't remember what word they used. But I was like, what could this possibly mean? And then I Googled it, and it was, like, motorcycle gang. And I was like, okay, so how was I supposed to know that? You could tell that author really needed to put their motorcycle research in somewhere. Maybe they ride motorcycles. What could this possibly be? Maybe it is made up. But I was like, what the fuck is hard bags? And I Googled it, like, with mailman first. And it obviously gave me no results. So I was like, I guess I'll just Google hard bags. But that seems like, I was like, I feel like I'm going to get weird pictures of boobs. Like fun bags, you know what I mean? Hard bag mailman. It doesn't give you any results, really. In case you're wondering. Check out my hard bags. But when I Googled just hard bags, it did show me, like, the... I guess I would have also probably called them saddlebags. For motorcycles. And I was like, oh. And once I saw it, I was like, I guess I don't know what else I'd call it. Besides saddlebag. Morgs Bar, hard bags. I feel like saddlebags is a normal name. That's what my dad calls them. Mike's hard bags. Yeah. All in all, I gave it like 3.5 stars. Because I feel like the actual like story really loved. The characters, they were definitely like men, not very in touch with their like feelings. Besides person B, who was like, I feel really bad about this elk from 10 years ago. Like they felt very like hard to me, I guess, like stoic. Except like towards the end, they're doing like a sweat. I forget what it's called now. Like a sweat session. What do they call it? It's not like Sweat Lodge. It's not sauna. Do they call it Sweat Lodge? It's like where they have the hot rocks. I believe you. No, it's like, it is like an indigenous like practice thing. They also do it in It, which I'm sure they should not. But I can't think of what it is. I feel like it has a fun name. They're like, we're gonna do a blank for so-and-so tonight. In the same vibe of like, pour one out for Steve. Yeah, it's like a ceremony. I can't think of it. Maybe they do just say ceremony. A sweat smorgy dork. Sweat sesh. Anyway, and I feel like that's the only time the like the last two, like, you really get to hear about like their feelings. Which makes sense. Like, they obviously, nobody wants to admit that they're scared about like their two friends dying really chaotically, suddenly, with a lot of gore involved. Sweat lodge does come from indigenous practice. Okay, maybe that is what they say. Getting sweaty with the boys. The other thing that was really interesting is obviously there was a lot of like cultural things that I didn't know. When they die is the last time you see their fillings. So, you know, it's always nice to learn about things that you wouldn't know about otherwise. But it is very, very gory. And again, like, I was really expecting to like not be able to sleep because so many people had recommended it, and I would not say it's like that at all. Sometimes you pregame an elk stomping you out with a little sweaty time. I haven't read Sons of Summer. If you don't like gore, I would not recommend reading more from Stephen Graham Jones. What are his other books? He's really cute. He's wearing a Wonder Woman shirt in his picture, which is really funny. He really likes werewolves and slashers. The Only Good Indians is the one that I've been recommended. Oh, Night of the Mannequins have also been recommended. Don't Fear the Reaper. The Babysitter Lives, which seems fun. After the people lights have gone off. Yeah, the other ones seem really interesting. My Heart is a Chainsaw. Is that on here? Oh, yeah. My Heart is a Chainsaw is the second most popular. And maybe I'll be too much of a baby. It was really good, but yeah, I think my expectations were too high. I really thought it was going to be like super scary. It was very gory, not really scary. Not scary because it could never happen to me. You know what I mean? I get really scared when I'm like, this is going to happen to me. But for this, I tell you, if there's a handful of things I don't do, hunting is number one. Spending any real time outside with animals would be number two. Elk hit list, not relatable, sorry. I would say also, as someone struggling with infertility, while it was like not a human who was talking a lot about their baby dying, it was still a little rough. Overall, I gave it 3.5. If you are the kind of person who's like not afraid of gore, but like is afraid of horror, you might really like it. Because I do feel like it's very interesting. But yeah. Yeah. It was a weird one. Gave it 3.5. Had a good time. Nice. Okay. I'm gonna go have lunch. put up some Halloween decorations, maybe take a little nap. But that is all. I love you. I appreciate you, especially if you stuck around even after OBS was being a little bitch. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow for Five Nights at Freddy's. And that is all. Okay, goodbye. See you later.